Hey gamers, thank you for watching my videos on the Henchmen gaming channel. I really appreciate the support and feedback. Please hit like and this icon to subscribe. Hey gamers, what's good? Welcome back to the Henchmen gaming channel. Games, platformers, top-down views, RPGs, so many memorable and challenging games. Today, episode 33 is the breakdown of ROMs. We will cover some installation, compression, emulation, and of course where to get and where not to get your ROMs. With today's hardware and processing power, playing games at home or mobile, pew pew pew. I like to make my own sound effects. It's not only easy and convenient, it's endless entertainment and feels like you recapture the joy of your childhood, especially with these old games, and maybe even some of the frustration. Damn it! Son of a mother. There are some great emulators out there that work on Raspberry Pi, tablets, and handhelds, but today we are focusing on the ROMs themselves.
What exactly is a ROM?
A ROM image or ROM file is a computer file which contains a copy of the data from a read-only memory chip, often from a video game cartridge, sometimes from computer's firmware, or even from the arcade game's main board. Seriously, how awesome is a main emulator though? When it comes to the basic and most popular emulators, there is a lot to cover, but we gotta start somewhere. Nintendo ROMs are among the easiest to download and load. They are relatively small files ranging from a few kilobytes to a few hundred kilobytes. These are pretty straightforward as you just drag and drop into your ROMs folder. Sega, Game Boy, Game Gear, SNES are all pretty much the same thing. Then you got ROMs that require several files and sometimes much larger than Nintendo, Sega, or Mega Drive type files. These are slightly more complicated and compressed. These files will require some compression tools. Luckily, your old pal Chris knows where to get some compression tools. And also Google. The first thing you need when dealing with compressed files is a good compression program or two. 7-zip works great for compressing and uncompressing files. I will include a safe link in the description where to get it. The other popular one I use is WinRAR. I will include a link to the site but also to my other video, which is essential to the evaluation copy of WinRAR. Almost all ROMs are compressed to save time when downloading them, but some emulators can read them in compressed form and in fact won't work unless they remain compressed. PS1 and PSP are files that need to be uncompressed when being used on the Raspberry Pi or emulation for the PSP. You will have to drag the CSO or ISO file into the ROMs folder or the ISO folder. I'll get into the PlayStation ROMs soon. Here are two files containing folders compressed with WinRAR. I'm going to right click and extract here. Here's my folder. I'm going to open up that folder and you see there are two files again with WinRAR. I'm going to go ahead and select the one that has RAR at the end and extract here again. And there is my ISO folder or file. Now if I close that off, see how I drag that to the desktop. You can rename your file. This is especially helpful if you have many files and you don't have to remember all the names or numbers. You can just rename it to the proper name. Now, it won't affect any emulation on Raspberry Pi or PSP because the game's metadata is going to provide the title and information when the game is actually launched. You can convert ISO files into CSO files to save space, but this is time consuming and it's really not a dramatic difference as far as space is concerned. However, I will include an ISO converter link in the description of this video. Now here I am converting an ISO to a CSO. The reason why I'm showing you this as it pertains to ROMs is because it can potentially save you space on a micro SD card or your Raspberry Pi. The file is actually converted from 442 megabytes to 206 megabytes. Raspberry Pi or your PSP will recognize ISO or CSO. MAME, Capcom, Neo Geo, just to name a few, will require you to leave these files compressed. So if you are downloading them, just place them in the ROM folder exactly how they appear after downloading, otherwise they will not play. Occasionally you will encounter a file that requires 2 or more files to run, or in this case a ROM. For example, PS1 files. The QUE file along with the other tracks are required together but not necessarily compressed. For example, let's look at this folder here. When I open this up, you'll see that there is a track and a CUE file. When I open this one, there are several tracks and again one CUE file. This file is essential to get these games to run. So if you download ROMs or files and it does not have the CUE file as far as PlayStation 1, then the game will not run properly. So I go into greater detail on how to organize your ROMs for PlayStation 1 in my other video, and I'll leave that link down in the description. Okay, now let's talk about where to get your ROMs. If you're getting ROMs from the internet, which you probably are, well obviously that means that there could be some grade A stuff out there or some really crappy incomplete ROMs. Or just sites trying to sell you stuff that you absolutely must have but manage to live this whole time without.
You just shake it. You just shake it.
Okay guys, so now let's talk about where to get your ROMs and where not to get your ROMs. And then we're also going to go over ROM sets, which is games that require more than one download or sets of ROMs. So the first site I have is romsmania.com. So let's check out ROMsmania. So when we click on, let's say, let's go ahead and click on a Game Boy Advance, and we hit download, and then you get this message. What it actually downloads, if you look at it, it has an executable file, so a .exe file. You don't want to download files that have a .exe file, because if this was a ROM, it would download in a zip or a WinRAR file. So automatically, without even going into that, I'm not going to even try and open that. And it says here, if you please click download. Let's see what happens. It just downloads the same file again. When you try and run that, if you explore that .exe file, it's basically like add-ons or extensions for your browser. So we don't want that. We're just looking for ROMs, which is why I would steer clear away from romsmania.com. It's not straightforward. There's just that added stuff in there. Next one, we got Love ROMs. Super Mario World. And here we go. Add my gaming search, blah blah blah, step 1 of 2. Again, not straightforward. It's again trying to add an extension or you know, eventually try and sell you stuff. Or it can also come with adware or malware, which is obviously bad, and we do not want that. Again, it's not straightforward. So this is ROM Hustler. Let's go ahead and we'll check out Atari 2600. And let's click on Pac-Man. And right in the middle of 2 ads is your click here to download this ROM. So it says that it's downloading, but obviously the status bar would come up with a download, so it doesn't appear to be downloading. It also says that when downloading split files, you need either HJSplit or 7-zip, which I have, to join files together. I don't think this would be a split file. It is a Pac-Man ROM for Atari, so it's only a few kilobytes at most. And as you can see, there wasn't really anything going on there. So let's try Game Gear. Sonic. Click here to download. Again, it says downloading, but nothing is happening. So let's go ahead and get out of ROM Hustler. Again, it wasn't straightforward, and it might be because my security is blocking something that this site is trying to do in the background. So I'm going to go show you something else real quick, and this is the R4 Town, which has these cards. Now for Nintendo 3DS, or even for a DS or DSi, they still sell cards for those. And basically, this is a site that also has ROMs, and these ROMs, like Contra, Super Mario, they say Nintendo DS. Of course, you know DS will play just fine on 3DS, and those cards, like the R4i Gold, will allow those games to be played on that system, on a 3DS. So pretty cool. I've used that card before, this card on a DS, and I think it runs, see, about 14 or 15 USD. So I just wanted to show you guys that, and some of the ROMs that are available for DS. Okay, so moving on, we have free ROMs. Let's go ahead and you can see I have a title pulled up. Let's click on the cool borders. Now this one is, it's not straightforward in the sense that it goes immediately to the ROM. It does give you this countdown right here, and you can click on the alternative link. Once that pops up and you click direct link, you'll see that Cool Borders has downloaded, and it's in a 7-zip file. So the only thing about this site is you'll have to wait for those seconds to count down for each ROM, which isn't bad. Now they do have some other links, and I do believe that those take you to extensions and stuff, kind of like on the other ROMs Mania. But this site is at least providing you with, and if you see, here is Cool Borders, and there's no password. Okay, so next we have Cool ROMs. So again, I went ahead and I clicked on Atari because I wanted to show you the difference between that other site and this one. Here's Pac-Man again. So as you can see, I'm kind of going on the line of from least favorite to favorite. So Cool ROMs works. You do have that little delay, but it works otherwise. Then you have Cool ROM. So sorry, that was free ROMs, and the next site was Cool ROMs. So there's Atari. There's a quick pick, and you can see it says download now, and there is the zip file. And of course, this one probably being one of the best sites is Emuparadise. And here you can find ROMs, ISOs, and games. You can also find emulators as well. And if you do a search, you can also find BIOS. Now here are some different BIOS. Sometimes game systems, like for example PlayStation, may require a BIOS in order for it to work, especially for Raspberry Pi. I will also include a link on PlayStation BIOS as well in my video description. So just to recap, ROMs Mania, no. Love ROMs, no. Cool ROM Hustler, no. Alternatives, r4town.com, Game Boy Advance, and DS ROMs. Not to mention the card. And there's also a Sky 3DS, which is used for 3DS games. Okay, then you got free ROMs, which is good, just takes a little more time. You have cool ROM, which is also good. Direct download. And you got Emuparadise. Alright guys, next up is going to be game sets or ROM sets, which are needed for certain emulators. So no matter how hard you try, you're going to run into a ROM that simply won't play. So what can you do? Try downloading the ROM again. You can also check another site like the site I mentioned earlier for that same ROM. Make sure you're not downloading a ROM that is a hack, because sometimes these just don't work. Make sure the ROM you download is being used on the correct emulator. Nintendo ROMs won't run on Mega Drive emulators, for example. Some ROMs require a part 1 and a part 2, maybe even a part 3, 4, and 5 in order to work. Why do some ROMs give you shit then?
Here are 3 possible reasons.
Right, so the ROMs or files could be split. Whereas one parent from has all the normal data and everything needed for the set, the clones actually have what's been changed or updated for that ROM. So I would have to download 1, 2, 3, 4 sets for this one ROM to work. So then I would take that and just drag and drop it into my main or ROM folder, or basically wherever your ROMs go. Alright, so the second reason can be a non-merge set. A non-merge set contains everything you need in order to play the ROM in one file. Sometimes these non-merge sets are split up when they shouldn't be, or there's just a component missing from them. So if I were to take all of these and drop them in the non-merge set and then zip this folder, this would be my non-merge set. So another thing could be, take for example, all of the information in here is combined with all of the information from these other folders into one zip file. But if there's a component that is missing from there, then your ROM may not load properly or may not load at all. Again, that's a non-merged set. Okay, the third thing about ROMs is the merge set, which takes the parent set and any clone set and places everything inside one parent set. This by far is the most common method and also the most efficient method, especially for MAME. So, like this one, this file here, if you open it up, it has everything you need for that ROM. Now, if this ROM at any time was bootlegged or modified, it could show up as a legitimate ROM, but in fact, because of that bootleg or missing component, that merge set could also not play properly. So I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of that as far as the ROMs go. I'm pretty sure that is clear as mud. Moving on. Okay, one last thing about ROMs and particularly MAME and Neo Geo. You may have 4 sets like this here, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Now say for instance you download the first 2 sets or the first 2 parts of the 4 sets, and that site doesn't have 3 and 4, but you need 3 and 4. You may actually have to download 3 and 4 from another site and then just combine all 4 together. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. I think that happened when I tried to play Ninja Gaiden. Okay guys, let's recap real quick. So Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Gear, Atari, these are ROMs that you would extract, drag and drop. Okay, PSP is an ISO or CSO format. PlayStation 1 requires tracks, and of course that CUE file I mentioned earlier. Some files like MAME require 2 separate downloads. And ultimately it would take me all day to go over everything about ROMs, so my goal is to give you the fundamentals about ROMs and some of the tools needed to utilize them. So, at the end of the day, you can't find that one ROM you've been dying to play. We've all been there. But just remember, emulation is not an exact science, and I am very thankful that with today's technology, we have emulators to even play some of our favorite games. And it gets even better as time goes on. Alright gamers, that's all I got for this video. I hope that I was able to answer some of your questions. If not, please drop me a comment below. Let me know what I missed and what you guys want to know about. And thank you so much for watching this video. Please hit like and subscribe, and happy gaming.